Welcome to my third four-player game of the International Championship. This game is against Mushan, Airren, Tamirys, myself. Um, Before this game, current standings, or the standings before this game are Tamirys and Airren are doing very well in this section. And I'm kind of middling to bottom tier. Mushan is kind of at the bottom. Airren's definitely has one of the better records going on so far. Definitely looks poised to win this one. Um, if you saw his last season, he did really well along with Silent, but Silent is not doing nearly as well this time around. All right, let's look at the leaders and wonders, kind of just looking at an idea. There's Hollywood with Fleming, but there's also Spaceflight with Einstein and Steve Jobs. I guess Chaplin also goes with Hollywood as well. And then Einstein and Steve Jobs also works well with Manhattan. Fast food chains could mean that you kind of want to colonize, especially with Mandela and Suez in the game as well. So there is potential for that. Early on, there is, Colossus could help go for Suez. Isabella could as well, but there's no Cook. And then there's Machu Picchu, which means that Iron could be very, very strong, but there's also Watt. So maybe you don't need Iron as much as well. So definitely a lot of flexibility in terms of the way that you want to proceed. It doesn't look like there's any one real, exceptionally good strategy for the end of the game. But you probably do want to cap it off with a big science or big culture, or like big theater or library leader. Like one of these two wonders are definitely top tier, whereas fast food chains, Empire State are very middling in points. And then Manhattan if you need to go more of the war route, of course. So getting into this, Mushan takes library first turn. If you saw my last game, you'll say that it's about the same. I have about the same thing to say, is that I would probably take Roman roads over library, but I guess Mushan values library a little bit more, which I think is still fair, but I just do feel like that Roman roads provides just a little bit more, because this blue token, I think, or sorry, these yellow and blue tokens are actually worth a good amount. This does mean that Airren could take Roman roads plus Engineering Genius, but being in the same position as Mushan, I would also probably take a wonder that I really, really want, as opposed to just like an Engineering Genius, which you don't even know if you can use very well or not. So Airren does take her own roads, Engineering Genius. Tamirys goes for Hammurabi and Richland. And that means I'm just going to take Sun Tzu and Stonehenge. Like I said, there's possible colonization. Also, I wouldn't mind, being in fourth position, have a little bit extra strength, and I think that Stonehenge is perfectly fine in wonder. So I'm not really loving Colossus or Acropolis too much, so I'm happy to take Stonehenge here. So Mushan's going to just do normal stuff. Doesn't take a leader, though. I'm not sure how I feel about that. There's only 3 leaders. You take 2 yellow cards, you're probably going to miss out on an H1 leader. Or, not have the one that you really want. I think that taking Homer or Ashoka is perfectly acceptable here. Neither of them need to be elected right away. So I'd probably take one of those over 2 AJ yellow cards. Probably Homer, actually. Airren goes for Homer. It's pretty hard to use Homer or Ashoka with Roman roads, but I don't like Caesar either, so I totally understand going for Homer. Doesn't need to be elected anytime soon, so you can do other things in the meantime, which I think this is perfectly acceptable, because Homer doesn't need to be done, never really needs to be elected, and this way you can finish Roman roads next turn and maybe grab a card or increase population. Tamirys goes for Hammurabi and then immediately switches to Saladin. It's a little surprised in this. I mean, Saladin is kind of strictly better than Hammurabi, but I don't know if he's worth 3 civil actions. At the same time, I kind of understand where he's coming from, because he doesn't want Mushan to get a good leader. and the only one available will be Caesar coming back to his turn. So maybe he's just taking Saladin to really slow down Mushan's game. Just 3 civil actions I'm not 100% sure about. You have a lot to do on the first turn, which is elect, pop, build something, and then you have enough space to take 1 or 2 cards. But, well, taking Saladin for 3 and doesn't get the population out, but maybe nothing will come up. Then I go for Sun Tzu, do the normal stuff, and then take the urban growth. So Mushan opens Development of Religion, so Tamirys slightly punished for doing this Saladin play. Does take Caesar because it's the last leader. I think that's still fair. Then takes Airren for 2, which compared to all the rest of the cards, Airren, of course, much better. Now Airren increases pop, and then just finishes Roman roads. Doesn't even have consumption, just like we said. Basically need to increase pop for the temple, and still has a free one for if the warrior event comes up. So Airren start pretty ideal with the Roman roads. Didn't need to take anything. There was nothing super important to take, and was able to just finish it straight away. Tamirys going to go for a lab, pop, engineering genius, and for the upcoming, probably St. Pete's. Hoping for him to grab St. Pete's, basically, is the idea. He does have to go through Airren first, so it's not guaranteed, but at the same time, you can kind of speculate a little bit. One of the things that I don't like about this is I actually kind of believe that it's better to take an Age A wonder here. Like, maybe don't increase population this turn. Just let it sit because you already lost the religion. And then use Engineering Genius to do for Acropolis or Colossus. Because Airren can take St. Pete's, and because you might have a lot of resources to spend with from Mushan's Caesar and stuff, and there's a good chance that I'll seed as well, since I am Sun Tzu, that there's a chance that you might not get this leader and you might have a bunch of resources and not know what to do with it. Especially because there's no alchemy, there's no irrigation, there's no iron that you can go for in this next coming turn. So I do think that this is kind of risky to kind of hope that you can spend your resources on St. Pete's, but it is the choice that Tamirys made. I play Foray. Since I'm Sun Tzu, there's a pretty good chance that I'll be one of the strongest ones. I just need knights. I already have a tactic. I mean, all these are strength events, and I wanted to seed here. Also, I'm really sorry about that noise earlier. Get the religion, go for monarchy, because I have the Stonehenge. I don't even increase pop, just start building on the Stonehenge right away. I figure that the warrior is not that good, and I'd much rather have the extra food at the moment. Plus, if I was going to increase pop anyways, I would probably want to build a lab first. And then I decide to play the tactic. It's questionable because it shows a knight tactic already, but it never goes away. I kind of wanted to keep both these strength events. So I do reveal it. It's definitely questionable though. So Mushan does seed, gets planning and civil life. The options for planning are warfare, settlement, and trade routes. So I will not be able to take warfare, but trade routes is a very good one, and so is settlement. So any of those are all great to pick from. Sorry, I have to wait out a second. Well, Mushan's going to use Civil Life to get the iron out, and then just upgrade twice. Increases pop to get out of corruption, and then takes Masonry. Not 100% sure about this. I feel like you could probably just start your library. That way you can use the remaining Your remaining actions just finish it next turn. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about Masonry in general. I know some people think it's like a good card. I really think it's very mediocre. It's like a little bit below average in terms of the card strength for its cost. Airren goes for wait, it's up to Trader Roads back first. Then grabs Printing Press and starts building them. So you've seen me go for Printing Press the last couple games. This time it's Airren's turn. There is no Shakespeare though, so these printing presses are mainly looking at Newton or Darwin or Gaudy. But he didn't build a lab first, so still perfectly reasonable. And he has an extra yellow token and an extra happy face from his initial setup. Could also grab Leo to get extra science is a possibility. So pretty flexible situation that's coming up. And Airren starts building a warrior to use Homer's bonus, since the development of warfare and religion are both out already. Tamirys goes for Code of Laws, grabs St. Pete's, and then just increases pop here. And does not want to be, and uses his strength. I mean, I guess he's really worried about strength events on Mushan's turn, because I could get stronger than 2 pretty easily. Doesn't want to eat anything that's come up, so I can definitely understand this. At the same time, yeah, I can just understand this. Seems like a good turn. Oh, I see it calls arms. I'm not exactly sure why I see it calls arms. I see it calls arms because I feel like there was a good chance that I could get extra resources to build a knight. Because I still have the trade routes, and I still have the civil life. So I thought there was a good chance that I could go for knights this turn and fill the tactic. But I didn't get extra resources. It was politics, crafts, and markets. I had a 2 to 3 chance to get any of those. I wanted to finish out the tactic this turn, but it turns out that I'm not going to be able to. So what I do is I instead just go for the monarchy, grab the knights, build a warrior. I'm still one of the 2 strongest. Then I urban growth a lab with my remaining 2 resources. If I want to go for knights next turn, I can still build a Stonehenge, but I won't have enough resources to go for knights, so it is a little bit questionable to build this lab on this turn. Still keep the strength events because I can still go for them. This does mean that I pass up on like con, which would have been a very easy way to get this tactic going. But I don't generally like Genghis Khan too much, so wasn't really thinking about him too much. Sean goes for Leo. Doesn't have doesn't have printing press, doesn't have alchemy yet, but he will have extra science, and he's planning to keep Caesar for a little bit longer. Upgrades, pops. Builds a warrior, builds another warrior. So now he's one of the 2 strongest with the Legion. And goes for open borders with the lowest strength potential player, which makes sense. And then has heavy cavalry, which kind of, I mean, he had it before that I drew it, but was unexpected to see it because I had one. Now Airren's one of the strongest. I wasn't really expecting this I wasn't expecting this much strength, but I can definitely still defend since I'm Sun Tzu, have monarchy. It just means that with Foray and Call to Arms in here, I'm feeling a little bit shaky about those seeds that I did right now. Dark Ages hits, rarely does anything, and Tamirys finishes St. Pete's. Has more happy faces than he needs at the moment, and still takes strength. I'm a little unsure about that. Do you think that he could have like grabbed Airren or something for future upgrade and stuff? But you know, these are actions that need to be eventually done, so I can definitely understand that maybe you also want to save your science for knights or something, so you can't really afford to grab iron at this point. I increase pop, finish Stonehenge. Don't have enough to go for knights, and didn't have enough science to go for knights and finish and get enough from Stonehenge, so yeah, this is how I ended up my turn, which I don't feel super great about. But I feel like it's if I have a really bad turn cycle, I'm gonna have a really bad turn cycle. We'll see if I get kind of lucky or not. Still keep the strength events because I still think I can be one of the stronger ones. And then Pestilence hits, and that actually kind of ruins a little bit of what I wanted to do. So Mushan finishes Library after going Masonry. Airren goes for Great Wall. And he's going to be able to push a lot of strength very soon. He can finish Great Wall next turn and have 12 total. And then afterwards, could go for Swordsman and get quite a bit. Tamirys takes Knights, really important tech, and then just takes a couple of yellow cards. And then because I had one free population, I lose the idle one. But because I really needed one population to go for Knights, I do have to destroy that religion that I got for free earlier. I'm fine with this. I just wish that I didn't increase population in order to do this first, because it would have been very nice to not have to spend an action disbanding, basically. I go for Knights. I'm going to keep the same tactic because I have pretty much no extra population for a long time to go for the medieval army instead. And so Phalanx should be able to defend me good enough for a little while. Plus, I'll still have a couple of colonization cards and should be able to defend with that. I do take all the way to grab 3 for Richland. I want to upgrade twice next turn. Alternative was to take Cultural Heritage or maybe go for Silk Road, but kind of want to get my Knights. I kind of want to get my Iron and stuff going as soon as possible, so I'm looking to upgrade twice. Keep the Reign of Terror because I actually think that Mushan, who is lacking Knights, is going to have issues getting stronger. I could always go for Swordsman or something myself in order to get extra strength, but at least not in certain borders, not border conflict. It doesn't benefit Airren as much since he plans on being much stronger soon. So Mushan seeds as one of the weakest ones. My foray comes out, so I'm very lucky that very few people seeded last turn. And it happens when I'm one of the strongest. Goes for Silk Road, goes for Alchemy, starts Silk Road, and that's it. Airren goes for an aggression against Tamirys. They have open borders, so it's pretty good aggression. Starts Great Wall, increases pop, builds another library, goes for Swordsman, and gets a little stronger this way. Really wanted to move the deck slowly here. Now Tamirys goes for Knights and copies my tactic, so he'll be quite a bit stronger. And ends at 9 right here. I see Reign of Terror because I think it's relatively safe that Mushan will be the one eating it. And then increase pop. So I don't know about rats or anything, so and then I go for extra resource production, like I said. Still get the cultural heritage, so pretty happy about that since I do want more science. Sean opens Call to Arms. I'm the second weakest, but at least I'm not the weakest. Switches to Leonardo since it's guaranteed to be one of the weakest next turn. And he wants to get a little bit stronger in order to at least theoretically defend against Airren. I'm honestly very questioning the cartography over the warfare. I really think that it's very likely that the warfare is better for the extra military action. Cartography seems a little greedy, is all I'm saying. All right. Mushan does this. Sorry, Airren does this. It's the same strength, but this is for future transitions. I actually like this since he's using the H1 military actions. It doesn't really matter about his draws as much. Um, so I really like how he switches here, even though it's the same strength. Then he upgrades and finishes Great Wall. So now Airren is very, very strong. Yeah, I do have to be careful about that. I have 2 defense cards, so I don't need that much extra strength. But it would be nice to have like 10 so that I can defend. Tamirys, Seeds, gets knowledge of the ancients. Everybody gets a little bit. I get a little bit less. Tamirys gets a little bit less. Increases pop. Goes for extra strength because it's kind of necessary. He didn't need to play this medieval army. Oh, he does. He does if this is a defense card, and he can draw 1. Okay, so I was thinking that it'd be better to copy my tactic, but it's actually better for him to play the medieval army so he can draw 1 more card in order to theoretically defend against 15. And then just goes for alchemy and urban growth in order to finish alchemy next turn. All right, I need something to do. I seed. I'm very happy to get this image, to get the resources. I didn't expect it, but I was kind of just hoping something from the deck would help out because I wouldn't have been able to get strong enough in order to theoretically to defend very easily. I would have had to just pray, and I actually really want this population free since I won't be able to deal with my happiness issues next turn. I basically thought that I was going to go for bread and circus, build 1 maybe, upgrade. But in this case, because I got the new deposits and I can finish this, I'm going to go for Magi and finish it right away. All right, now that we're at the end of age 1, feels like a good time to stop and take an assessment. Mushan has good resource production, will have good science production, extremely low strength though, and it's definitely, honestly, it's like a really big deal that he's at such low strength. Airren is very strong. He only has, 3 military actions. If Tamirys canceled his open borders pack, he wouldn't look nearly as threatening, but Tamirys also needs the military action. And at the very least, actually, I forgot about the open borders earlier when I talked about Tamirys and Airren being able to theoretically defend. We didn't take the strength because there's no way you can defend from +7. So I guess Mushan is kind of banking that this is a guaranteed from +7, but at the same time, Mushan's economy is more greedy, so generally you want to punish somebody who has the more greedy economy. And I'm the only one who can actually defend against Airren, even without the Himeji sack. But at the very least, so Mushan has good resource production, good science production, not a lot of civil actions, but has some techs. I do wish that this cartography was warfare, since they would both be this under the same branch, basically. But Mushan has just decided to be on the very greedy end. Airren, extremely strong, not a lot of resource production, but has really good culture already. He gets +3 from his printing presses and Great Wall, and then another 3 from being Genghis Khan. Tamirys, also not a lot of resource production, but his science will be pretty good. His happiness is going to be set for the entire game because he has St. Pete's, so that's really nice. And he has a lot of civil actions, being Saladin. He does want to get a little bit stronger, though. Probably around 12 strength to feel safe. Maybe only 11, actually. He just wants to be, at most, defending from 4. So right now he defends this is from 7. So he wants to be like 3 stronger, I think. Depending on if he draws any H2 defense cards. And then my civilization, I have good resource production. I'm the only one with a government, but I only have 5 civil actions. My science is not looking great, and I don't really have ways to improve it at the moment. Alright, so Mushan, he's Leo. He wants to build an alchemy, so he basically does that. And he also finishes Silk Road while he was at it, since it only takes 2 civil actions with masonry. There was no way to get out of corruption when he was at 20 resources, so this totally seems fine. And then Airren does not have an aggression, just goes for an event. And this is really good news for me because I had 2 food before. I feel great being able to increase pop right away. Tamirys, on the other hand, he's left with extra food, but he can go for reserves to get another population out. And Airren was in the same situation as me. This really helps him out get that last population out. Mushan didn't matter. Also, basically is in the same situation as Tamirys. If he gets 1 more population, then he'll be stuck at +3. So Tamirys and Mushan didn't really benefit from it, but while being Airren, it was really big. Although I believe somebody's part of a pact? No, I guess there's no trade routes pact anymore. So Airren takes irrigation and just starts building on it. I kind of expected him to build 1 outright, because I think that's the eventual way that you want to go. But maybe at the moment he wants to have the potential to get another government, then get a government, and then build another printing press. The extra 1 would not have mattered so much, so I can kind of see where he's coming from. At the very least, I think I would have built an irrigation outright. Tamirys goes for an upgrade here, plays reserves for food, so that he can get a little bit stronger, and then takes the rifleman. Just gonna ignore the swordsman, which I don't know if you want to do that. I'm pretty sure that on bronze you want to be on swordsmen and knights and not take the rifleman. But what this does do is that it really locks out Mushan from getting any stronger at all. So it's really painful for Mushan. It really hurts Mushan a lot for Tamirys to take this. I am not going to seed. So production happens, and I'm not going to see this scientific breakthrough. Actually go for this aggression, and I was pretty sure that this wasn't going to land, but I decided to try and do it anyways. Both Tamirys and Airren passed on it. I guess I was the only one with aggressions. If I thought that this was going to go through, I would go for the raid. But it did go through, and then I was surprised that it did. So I got the worst aggression off, but it's still fine. You know, Mushan has so many resources that he's not going to miss a couple. And then I grab breeding, just because it's the first one, but I can't really go for it right away. And then I just increase my resource production and plan on going for breeding next turn. I kind of would have liked this code of laws, but I just wasn't able to afford it at the time. I still can't really, and I kind of just don't think that. I kind of think that the increased population or increased food production would be a lot better than a lot better than spending 6 science on code of laws. So Mushan wins wealthy because he put it in for navigation, I'm sure. And this actually means that the extra good harvest was worth it since you can get 1 more pop out. Goes for code of laws, and then builds warrior. And I think that, again, this is very greedy. Mushan can't really defend anybody. So I feel like he should have gone for knights here. Yeah, I think that there's basically no reason that you shouldn't go for knights. Everybody else can use the Sun Tzu knight tactic, and being only on warriors with the Legion, it just means that you are very subject to getting run over. And honestly, though, it would take a lot of turns in order to catch up because there's only 2 military actions. But at the same time, at least grabbing the knights and building them would help in a way, as opposed to spending science on Code of Laws. But he builds a temple, and then Green goes for a war over territory. It's basically crushing. Gets up to 17, 18. If you look at Mushan, there's basically no way that he can get any stronger. Being only at 5 science, can't afford any military tech, only on 2 military action. Can't afford a military tech, can't afford any military actions. This war is pretty crushing, basically. And then Tamirys also goes for a war, goes for war over tech. Upgrade up. Can only upgrade once. Takes engineering genius. Watt because he has no upgraded production, and an efficient upgrade. Goes up to 16. And then, you know what? I see how weak Mushan is, and there's no way that he can really get stronger. So I decided to join the party as well. So, in the same turn, Airren, Tamirys, and I all drew a war, and we all decided to play it. I basically spend very little effort in getting stronger as well. Only go for +2. This way I can get my food production up. And I think Darwin plus journalism could be pretty good. If I get 1 token, then I can increase population and build 1 journalism out next turn. But being in this situation, you're looking pretty rough as Mushan here. And he rightfully thinks so as well. So he just resigns. And I think that's completely fair. I was pretty certain that he would have resigned just after the Tamirys declaring war as well. But he probably would have kept going with just Airren. I decided to dogpile on with my war, even though I wasn't drawing any cards. Just because if on the off chance he doesn't resign, I think that yellow token would have been extremely useful. Because if he didn't resign and Airren won like 4 yellow tokens or 3 yellow tokens, he would just be too dominating. So I really wanted a position where I was getting 1 or 2 as well. So now that Mushan's away, it's a 3-player game, which is not my forte, unfortunately. I'm actually feeling a little uncomfortable now the fact that I know that Reign of Terror is one of the cards in the deck. So I always have to kind of be careful about that. I also have Darwin in hand, so I also have to get team sports. I can't really use organized religions. Yeah. I know that's going to be difficult to be able to access my population, but honestly, we're just going to see how it is. I can defend relatively well with Isabella I can defend relatively well with the setup that I have, good resource protection with Isabella, and Magic Castle, like basically being the safety net for me. So Airren seeds and actually wants historic. I thought that this would be a pretty easy win, so I only bid 1 knight and the card, or 1 warrior, 1 resource, basically, and a card. I didn't expect to have to to compete for this one, but Airren did want this. I thought that this would be useful for me. I didn't want to spend very much on it though. But he spends 1 warrior, 1 card, takes reserves, goes for scientific method, and is probably looking to move into Newton, since I already have Darwin, Tamirys already has Watt, so nobody can really take him. And Newton would be really good to have on 5 CA, since the extra civil actions that Newton has really matters a lot when you're on Monarchy, I think. Tamirys goes for Watt. I think this is just a hand space creating thing. If it's kind of strange, you know, if Tamirys didn't go for strength in the war with Mushan, he would be able to take this Rev idea, no problem. But the fact that he had to switch out Watt just in order to take this Rev idea shows a little bit on how much hand space management matters. And then to finish off, he just takes the never mind. For some reason I thought Tamirys took the Suez here because he didn't have civil actions anyways. But okay, I guess I remembered incorrectly. Alright, I take methods. I can't go for the journalism because I don't have free population. Method is a good way to get my science production up anyways. And then I take the justice system, which I think I can go into next turn, and being on 6 CA with Darwin is a good place to be. I also don't seed because I'm the weakest, and I didn't want to have to deal with strength-based stuff. I want to deal with it as late as possible. Except that this one was fast, and since we all bid 6, if I had played Scientific Breakthrough, there was a chance that I could have won it. At the very least, it would have made Airren pay more if he wanted it. So I am regretting not seeding in that situation. Now Airren switches to Newton, goes for navigation, and then builds a swordsman to be the strongest. Tamirys goes for infiltrate on me. It's a pretty bad aggression. Well, I mean, it does clear a card, so it's an aggression. I'm a little surprised that he goes for it because he won't draw cards. I'm really not convinced that this is the right way to go. Just because you're not sure that you've drawn a tactic. I'm not sure he's drawn a tactic, otherwise he probably would have revealed it already. And he knows that I can defend 100%. And then even if I don't defend, all he can do is take Isabella. So I have Darwin in hand, so Isabella wasn't that good. But I decided to defend anyways because I'm looking at my turn. I don't have a lot of ways to spend my resources. The only way that I can start doing that is on a wonder or on team sports. So I'm looking at my turn, I'm looking at cultural heritage plus justice system. That may be the only way that I get a corruption. So I kind of want Isabella's extra 2 blue cubes for now. Sorry, looking at the remaining of Tamirys' turn, he goes for idea. See that space for Conmon, goes for Conmon, and starts Eiffel Tower. So one of the ways that I can even spend resources is gone right away. And then he starts building it on it, which is honestly a little surprising to me. He does take the urban growth, but I kind of feel like maybe the breakthrough might have been more important. But it's very possible I didn't want to take more cards and have the possibility of this coal dropping. He knows that I'm not going to go for it, but there's a pretty good chance that Airren will go for this anyway. So I'm actually a little surprised that he decided to go for Eiffel Tower as opposed to taking the coal. I think I would have... It's hard to say which one, just because near the end of the age, so the second coal will come out anyways soon. And, you know, I think I think part of Tamirys' reason for doing this urban growth, not this breakthrough, is that if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coal was the 5th one, that I would have more incentive to deny it, because both Airren and Tamirys are kind of competing for coal. Although at the same time I have Darwin, so it still costs 1 civil action if I want it to be. Anyways, that being said, that's the turn. So play the cultural heritage, go for the justice system. I do a turn where I don't spend any resources. I feel like I want these cannons, take the architecture as well. If I go into a culture race, being the only one with architecture is actually a really good spot, because since buildings cost so much and both of my opponents really need to upgrade their resource production, I should have a pretty good lead into into culture and into producing culture if my buildings can be cheaper and I don't need to spend resources upgrading production. I still don't seed because I'm the weakest. I know Rain-a-Terror is here. I just don't want to have to deal with it just yet. And then as my last action, I take the breakthrough and increase pop. I know that the rebellion is also out as well already, so I don't want to have to deal with happiness issues later. So this way I still stay safe from H2 happiness events. Oh, I must have misread. Okay, so the Rain-a-Terror does hit me. Airren plays reserves and should be going for Cole this turn. Second Cole's out, so you know that Tamirys is going to go for that. I don't have any happiness, basically. I'm really looking for that as team sports, so that's kind of what happened there. Tamirys goes for Cole, upgrades, and then upgrades again. And then takes breakthrough and urban growth. Not sure about the urban growth. He already has one. I think maybe the frugality might have been better. But he does have a lot of resources to spend here first. So maybe he really, really wants to spend really quickly. But I do think that part of his bottleneck is population, and maybe the frugality will help out with that instead of the urban growth. Especially since you need at least 2 population to use 2 urban growth, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Now, I offer Tamirys resources. I actually want the food more anyways. I tend to find having the extra population matters a lot more. Wait. Did I? Oh, I still have 7 resource production because I had Isabella. Alright, so I increase pop again. Rain-a-Terror didn't really hurt that much. Part of the reason also is that when I lose 2 cubes next time, I can still increase population one more time. Increase pop. Make some hand space. Switch to Darwin since it's going to be the next turn anyways. Really increase my science production, and also it's a little bit more culture. And take the frugality plus the strategy. Having the frugality means that the turn after I'll still be able to pop, so I'll have 1 pop for the next 2 turns. Unfortunately though, I do pass the cavalrymen. There's a possibility that I want it because of H2 tactics, but at the time I wanted the frugality more. Plus, if you look at my hand, I will have drawn a lot of I already have a good H1 tactic or H2 tactic, so I don't really need cavalrymen. I would just need riflemen if I wanted to go that way. And after this draw, you see that I drew fortifications, classic army, Napoleonic, and I think earlier it doesn't show, but earlier I also think I drew defensive army, I believe. So I've drawn these 4 hussars and classic. I believe the only one that I did not get was mobile artillery. I could be wrong about the defensive army, but it really limits the strength that they can have since I have all of the I drew all of the tactics that involve knights basically. So I know that I don't have to worry about like strength pushes for a long time with the draws that I've had. Conversely, I could also go for my own strength, but at the same time I need to spend science on team sports. I want to increase my culture production with journalisms. Yeah, hard to say. This is basically the last turn in H2. Only Airren will have 1 more turn. So looking at this, Airren and I both have really good science production. At the end of his turn, he's going to have excellent resource production as well. He has the extra population. And the only thing that he has a really, really big economy. It's just that his science is on his culture production is a little bit on the low side. And I really think that an extra irrigation at some point would also really help. But all that being said, he's in a really strong position. I think Newton will provide a lot of extra science, a lot of extra civil actions, and could even upgrade out of his monarchy very soon. Tamirys also has a relatively big economy. One of the big things that he has going for him is he has 7 civil actions, whereas both of us have 5 and 6 respectively. We'll have good culture production next turn after finishing Eiffel Tower and quite a bit of happiness. I think that his big issue is that he doesn't have... His culture will be only medium after Eiffel Tower, and he still doesn't have his food set up yet. So it takes a little bit more work for his food to get up, but he'll do it in 1 turn. I do think Airren could benefit just a little bit extra food. And then I'm going to have the lowest resource production at the end of all of this. But I have the architecture. I plan on turning this into a culture game to go for journalism. And even though I'm a little bit behind in culture, I think that Darwin will really, really give me a very big spike very soon. Airren Seeds, it's inhabited. I don't even want it. I could try to go for it and still defend with the Himeji, but honestly, I didn't have any cards. Couldn't really beat Airren anyway, so there wasn't really a point for me. I'm kind of glad that Tamirys won it because I think Airren is in a better position. Increases food production, or increases resource production twice. Like I said, I wish that second resource production increase was a farm, but increasing to 7 resource or increasing from 7 to 9 is definitely like a big deal. And he still has plenty of free population, so if he wants to, he can still increase food production next turn. And then Tamirys Seeds, Airren is not among the weakest. Increases food and increases resources all in the same turn. Takes the cannons and the patriotism. So Tamirys has a lot of resources, a lot of resource production, but not a lot of science and not a lot of culture. So it's really up to the next couple turns to see how that shifts. I'm really grateful that neither of them felt the need to deny team sports, because I would have been in kind of a bind with my happiness. I have the emigration, so I know that happiness isn't a big deal, but that being said, even if I increase pop, I have 4 unhappiness. So I'm glad that I can just deal with this right now. Go for journalisms, team sports. Good thing professional sports would have also helped me, but I kind of prefer the team sports since I already have it in hand, and this way I can build both of these and still take the rifleman that I want. So culture production definitely catching up. I'm a little bit ahead of Tamirys now, and I can probably catch up to Airren relatively soon. I'm still one of the weakest, and this is a big deal international agreement. Definitely seeded by Airren, so it makes sense that he would, but this is definitely a big deal. The fact that he can grab multimedia here, efficient upgrade. Cavalryman is just a bonus, but getting the multimedia, being able to play it right away, and use the efficient upgrade to get 2... Oh. Sorry, can only get 1 multimedia this turn, but that's a big jump in culture. It'll be a big jump soon in culture production, especially with the urban growth engineering. And even though I thought I could catch up, the international agreement really helps Airren's culture production a lot. I think he would have been able to do just fine regardless. It's just that this definitely made his turn very strong. Tamirys Seeds, economic progress, which really good for them, and because I'm only on Airren and they're on coal, I lose out a little bit. Tamirys goes for Mandela, which I think seems reasonable since he's going to have a lot of extra happiness. So now Mandela is providing 3 culture and an extra civil action. And if he builds another religion, it's now 5 culture. And another religion, it's now 6 total. So he's pretty set on his happiness for the rest of the game. and didn't even need to like develop pro sports or movies or anything for it. And builds a rifleman and is still in corruption. But that's okay. So now Tamirys is up to 15 culture production, just like that. It drops over time as Mandela does, but what I thought was going to be really good culture production for me ended up being they're all going to catch up really quickly, or they're all going to catch up in my culture production really quickly as well. So here, I finally seed popularization of science because my science production is ridiculous and it's only going to get higher. From here, I play strategy to be a little bit stronger, go for a library, and I want these reserves as well. I had some vague lines to try to build another library, but I didn't want to have to disband for it. So I figured next turn, and that I really wanted these reserves too because my resource production is lower. So just kind of went with this turn as it is. And then strategy is also nice just to increase the amount of cards that I can hold, even though I don't really need all of these, just tactics. Airren upgrades, builds one, so now its culture production is really high, takes civil service, develops it, takes military theory, plays wave, and builds 2 units. So Airren's culture production and science production is extremely high now, and has all multimedia. Tamirys seeds, opens population of science, which is big for both me and Airren. Takes computers, and I think this kind of makes sense that you need the science to kind of keep up. At the same time, you didn't need to upgrade twice. You could have just built one outright, and maybe that would have been a little bit better. But it's tough to say. It's possible that you need this population to go for movies later. But it's not exactly easy to say, basically. But it's possible that you could have used this to not upgrade and then taken some endowment or military buildup, that kind of stuff. So I go for the democracy, build another library, build another team sports, take the space flight instead of the Hollywood. There is a thought to take Hollywood and the movies here. They're still Fleming. But the reason that I don't take movies is because I really want spaceflight, and spaceflight is the card that really restricts my turn for the most part. I can't take movies and Einstein and build all of these together. And because I want to get out of corruption, I do build the journalism and the team sports. So that's pretty much locked in. Spaceflight's pretty much locked in. And with one extra civil action, I could either take Einstein or movies. So it would either be Hollywood plus movies or Einstein plus, or just take Einstein here with the spaceflight. And you can see that I went for spaceflight because it's a wonder that Airren could take, and it's a really big wonder at that. So I decided to go for spaceflight because it denies the ability for Airren to go for spaceflight. His spaceflight would be absolutely enormous. With Newton and all these techs and all the science, there's just no telling how high it could really get for him. So I'm pretty sure that I have to take spaceflight here. And because I'm taking spaceflight, I'm going to take Einstein and not movies. And this is also just because, like, Airren has so much science. I don't know if I can let him transfer to culture that easily without having to spend resources for it. The reason that Einstein is a big deal as opposed to movies is because the culture coming from Einstein is completely free. Whereas at least movies, you have to spend resources to build it. And if he has to spend resources with movies, then at the very least, he's not being a threatening military threat at the same time. So I feel like I can just manage the one culture race portion of this and not have to manage any strength as well. That being said, Tamirys is still in the game. He has a lot of military techs up. I do know that he can't have a Napoleonic army, I know that he can't have classic army. I know that he can't have defensive army. So he's on pretty limited amount of tactics that he can be threatening, though. Also, doesn't have a lot of MA, and I believe that the military theories are both gone. So it's really hard for Tamirys to be threatening. I'm really looking at this point just Airren, how threatening he is. And I decide that I'm trying to manage his culture by taking Einstein here, hoping that Fleming will drop really, really late and that he can't get +6 culture from movies for like 2 or 3 more turns. Ideally, you know, Fleming would just be like the last card, and then that would help so much in terms of this game. But you know, Einstein's here right now, so I can take him away right now. And plus, you know, Einstein is a lot of culture for me if I let my science build up, while I still use Darwin for the next couple turns, since he's providing 6 extra culture for me. So far, by the way, I've seeded impact of. Yeah, these are the only impacts that I've drawn. Impact of harmony and population. Both of these are relatively good for me against. Well, they're okay basically. They're pretty even against Airren, and a little bit behind here against Tamirys, a little bit ahead here against Tamirys. But these are both about equal against Airren. So Airren seeds. I'm actually pretty glad that all the resources go to Tamirys. I really feel like he's behind. And then unfortunately Fleming drops right away. So Airren takes Air Force, reserves, and then goes for 2 movies, which is so much culture production. As soon as he gets Fleming, it's free to 26. And I can't really do much about in terms of the strength. Yeah, you know, Airren has a lot of resources. I don't have enough military actions to go for a war right away. So yeah, I'm just having to race against culture, and 20 culture production against 18 seems fair for now. But once Fleming comes out, once more movies comes out, it gets to be pretty unmanageable. At the very least, though, Hollywood already fell off, and fast food chains and Empire State are not the biggest wonders. To make matters worse, National Pride hits, and then Tamirys just starts to go for movies as well. I think he sees that he can't go for military pressure, and there's no tanks, so he can't even threaten like modern army or anything. So this is pretty much all he can do. I seed impact population. I don't really want this one too much, but I felt like Airren did. So I bid a full army here, if I remember. Actually, I bid just underneath an army. I can't even do 7 that easily. But I decided just to bid just high enough that he'd have to either spend 2 units or a card in a unit is already 8. So I wanted him to pay just a little bit more. I don't think it matters too much, but I personally could not afford to spend 7. So yeah, I just bid as high as I felt like he would win it for. I just don't have the population, basically, because I didn't want to have to rebuild a unit or anything. So I build another journal. I build another library here, take the reserves, and then I take quite a few techs in order to do Einstein. And then one thing that I am not sure about that I do is that I play this tactic here. It is kind of a questionable decision. One of the big reasons that I did do it is because I'm a little afraid that I'm going to lose it next turn. There are only 12 cards available after Airren's turn, and he is Einstein, or sorry, he is Newton. He has a lot of free CA and stuff. One of his actions is just going to be to take and elect Fleming, so he could very easily take quite a few cards. I don't think I'm too worried about it enough because I don't think I'm very worried about it though because both Airren and Tamirys want to take wonders. I think the main issue happens when Airren doesn't take a wonder and Tamirys doesn't want Empire State. Um, and they both like somehow compete for fast food chains or something. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I kind of see like a scenario in which that I lose the tactic and I do play it and I do question this decision because Airren and Tamirys can go for it. I leave myself in a position where they can copy it next like not next turn but the following one after for the end game when end packs happen. And yeah, I do play this because next turn I plan on upgrading 2 riflemen though, and I want to still be able to draw. And I figure that I can do this. I'm just afraid that I'm also, yeah, those two things that I'm a little bit afraid of and considering. I do play it, and I'm not sure if it is the best play or not. I could also play this Napoleonic army though instead, and that way, I lose 4 strength, but it doesn't really matter. I think I don't think the strength matters at this point, since all these seeds were done when people were very equal in strength and could go anyway. Especially since neither Airren or Tamirys had any H2 tactics, so I don't think they planned on being stronger. I was the only one who could really seed for strength if I wanted to. But I'm not too worried about strength. I probably could have played the Napoleonic army, is all I'm saying. But the classic, it helps Airren too easily, so I'm not sure if that is what I should have done. But I do play it. I go up to 21 resource culture production, and at the end of this turn, you can start to see some gaps start to develop. Airren's a little bit ahead of me. I'm a little bit ahead of Tamirys. All of our culture production is extremely high. All of our science and resource production is, mine's not high, but I have 2 reserves, so a lot of equality going on here. But the biggest thing that I have going for me is that I have a space flight that is poised to be absolutely enormous. I have, 50 plus science in the next couple of turns, so I could really get a huge space flight out of this. Whereas the Empire State and the fast food chains are more like 20-point wonders, 18 or 27, and this is like a 25er usually. All right, developed. I don't even want it. Yeah, I just don't even want it. Airren doesn't either. Takes the Empire State. At the moment, Airren is only winning culture. He is not winning resources. He is winning strength now, but he's not winning science. He's not winning culture. Or sorry, he's only winning culture. He's only winning strength. He's not winning science, resources, or food. Food is quite a ways away. Needs at least +3 more production. Resources also a little ways away. Needs 2 more production, and science actually needs a lot. So it's going to be pretty difficult for him to get more than just 2. Tamirys seeds, and then it goes for Cold War. Didn't expect that. Don't really need it, to be honest. I'm really limited in my civil actions soon, actually, if we look at this. Tamirys goes for a little bit of a strength push, but it's not very high, so yeah, not too much going on there. Would have been nice if he had a modern army or something to have his strength actually be relevant, and I wish that it were, because I would really like to deny Airren's strength. So for the most part, I think that it's on. So on my turn, I do question seeding this impact of harmony. It's equal with me and Airren, so it's not even that good. And then I'm thinking that both of these were played by Airren, and it's possible that one or both of them give him resources in some way that make his turn less predictable for me. So basically I'm thinking I need to deny strength because right now he has a really easy venue of building one Air Force or one tank or something. Like one H3 unit, getting +9 strength, and going up to 31. So I need to be higher than 31 is what my thought is. But at the same time, I want to draw 3 cards. I want to get another impact next turn. So I don't want to spend too many actions going for military stuff. Also, I need 16 resources for spaceflight next turn. And I'm just saying this for all the things that are kind of in my head at the moment. So I see the impact goes for vast. I consider bidding on this because it can help with my impact of population. But at the same time, I don't necessarily want to use the resources. I don't want to spend the turns even increasing population, to be honest, because I have so many actions that I need to spend just playing cards, and because I have a lot to do. So Tamirys wins this one rifleman. I go for Einstein. Then I spend 5 actions playing technologies, or 4 actions playing technologies. No, actually 5 actions playing technologies. So really nice getting 15 culture from Einstein on that turn. Then I also increase my, I fulfill the classic army. Then I also increase an arena by 1 just to get up to 32. Now the problem is that I don't know if this is something that helps Airren or not, but this is all I can predict for now. And then with my last action, I increase this library. Not sure if I should. Essentially, this 1 increase is worth 2 culture, and not much more else after that. It's just worth the production from this turn and the production from next turn. The extra science doesn't do anything for me. In theory, if I had a little bit more science, I could go for tanks, oil, and mech ag, but it seems like the other players would probably just deny 1 or 2 of those from me. So I'm not expecting to develop more than 1 or 2 techs next turn. So the extra science doesn't matter. This is actually just pure extra culture. So it's questionable that I should even spend this civil action doing this, and instead I should maybe have built 3 steps for spaceflight or something, or used my reserves at some point. But I decide that it's worth 2 culture. Might as well do something with it. I guess it's also possible that I could have gone a little bit stronger by building like a cannon or something, or yeah, like disbanding and building a cannon or something. But it's not easy to know exactly what to do in this situation. But I do get over 31, which was my main goal. I spent a lot of actions playing cards, got a lot of culture. And I guess part of this increase is that maybe I need a little bit to beat out Mandela in impact culture. There's no way I can beat Airren, of course, but maybe if I edge out Mandela in culture, that I can just increase again for 1 action next turn, and maybe it's worth 7. Yeah, so that's what I do. And then unfortunately, I don't draw any impacts. I really think that if I drew any impact that was even, I would feel very good about my position. There's a lot of good impacts for me. There's a lot that are just as good for Airren. I think honestly, both of our civilizations are very close to each other, but just having an impact would have been very nice here. Okay, so after this turn, Airren is going to get something around 40 to 50 points, and then I'm going to get quite a bit. So this gap looks like it's going to be very close between me and Airren, and no matter what Tamirys does, I just don't think that he has enough to catch up to either one of us. So do on the age. I guess I also, before this goes, I also briefly had the thought that I didn't have to end the age if I didn't take any cards, I wouldn't have been the age, but the two cards that were here weren't really worth taking. And then I'm not really sure that I want to leave Airren with another turn of 30 culture production or more. I mean, honestly, because he can go for democracy and then build like another movies. So that would be like 37 culture production. Yeah. So I briefly thought about it because, you know, I can make the spaceflight bigger. I could threaten a war. You know, I still have modern army. So maybe if I had built a lot of military instead of doing what I did, it's possible that I could have gone for a war. But I decided it was too risky, and I just played the way that I did. So unfortunately, this is freedom of movement. So if I didn't play Impact of Harmony on that turn, this wouldn't be able to happen. But yeah, so Airren plays resources, moves this over so he can copy the tactic that I played, and now he can get up to 38 instead. And this is the result of me playing that classic army on that turn that I did. So it's costing me in some manner. At the same time, though, Airren still had the possibility to build 2 bronze and then go for democracy this turn instead of going for Air Force. So it's possible that this doesn't matter. I actually haven't done the math at the end of the game, but he could have built 2 mines and then have gotten the Empire State for resources and culture. So it'd still be 18. Then he had more culture production from democracy. So this is just one of the lines that Airren could have done, but I didn't want it to make it an option. And the problem is that it is an option now. And he's also improved his harmony up to 20. I'm going to freedom movement over the same way, but still. So now he gets 16. Oh, sorry, it's only 16 instead of 18, but still 16. And then Tamirys, he doesn't really have much to do. Yeah, so also if Airren increased population again, he would have a little bit more in that. Yeah, so I kind of wish that this came out the turn before, so Tamirys would be at 50, but unfortunately it's not. Goes for fast food chains and spends all his actions finishing it. It's for 21. And then I take a tech, develop, play my reserves, finish spaceflight for 38, and then increase the modern army just in case of, you know, impact of strength or something. So after production, once again, Airren and I are extremely tight, extremely close, 4 culture difference. The only impact that I know is harmony, and we're completely equal in that. So yeah, that's it. I just have to pray for this. I'm fairly certain that, you know, culture didn't matter since Tamirys moved one of his religions away. So I'm glad I didn't have to consider any implications for impact of culture. But we just have to kind of see what comes up at this point. First impact is colonies, and I think this kills the suspense right away. Since it's colonies, I honestly didn't expect colonies because Airren stopped bidding on colonies at some point. So I think that it's possible that Tamirys played this as like his last impact since he got 2 colonies pretty late for really cheap, making it equal. And this is like, it's just really sad to see this right away. Government, I'm a little bit better than just by 1. Harmony, we're all equal. industry, I'm a little bit behind. So, there's a pretty big gap between me and Tamirys, but there's also a very large gap between me and Airren. 18 is not something to easily do over 2 impacts. But competition is basically a ray of hope. I gained 8 here, but there's not a lot that I can do to gain plus 10, and unfortunately strength is not enough. So I end up 3 points short of Airren. Don't know if the whole strength thing mattered because of the way the impacts fell. If Airren had democracy, extra population, extra government, I think that it all equals out for the most part. So I think pretty much no matter what, he still had the win. But whenever it's this close with this high culture count, 1% difference, you have to really start to look at where you could have eked out a little bit more. And there were a couple turns where I held on to Isabella when I could have played Darwin, and maybe that was part of it. Maybe I could have done it there. Maybe I could have denied movies somehow by not building a journalism so that he wouldn't be able to go into it right away. Of course, I would have taken corruption, but maybe that would have been worth it. And then, yeah, it's hard to tell. And this game ended up being extremely close. Yeah, and I really felt like I needed this win, and unfortunately, I didn't get it. So at the conclusion of this game, I'll just list out the standings for my division. Tamirys and Airren are essentially both the top. It's hard to tell which one's better, but because Tamirys has 5 games completed with 16 points, Airren has 4 games completed with 14 points. Warziniech, from my earlier games, he has 4 wins, 11 points, so he's doing really well. And then I'm in 4th, but I have the most games completed out of everybody. I also have 11 points. Then the final 3 people are Gangasip. He has 3 games completed, 6 points. Silent, 3 games completed, 6 points. So those 2 are about the same parity with me, I believe, in terms of, they can definitely go higher, they can go lower. It's really depends on their games because, 5 points over 2 games is not a lot. Then finally, Mushan has 4 games completed with 4 points. So he's the only player that I'm actually definitively beating. Even if he has a win, he'll still have 10 points. So my position is pretty fragile. It really depends on the results of the other players. I think usually 11 is just about borderline for relegation or not. And I know that last season, Airren and Silent took all the points basically from everybody. So the threshold was very, very low that game. But I think 11 is just on the borderline, and I'll probably need to get somewhere between like 14 or 15 points just to be safe. So I have 2 games left, hoping for at least a 2nd place in one of them, but even that might not be enough. I'm very much on the borderline of just being able to barely hold on. Definitely not doing. I don't know. I didn't start off the last season very well either, so maybe I'll finish strong still. Who knows? Anyways, hope to catch you in the next video.